and let me welcome two guests now who represent U.S. Embassy Prague. We would like to thank U.S. Embassy for its support in the receiving a grant for Business and Professional Women Project Academy for Women Entrepreneurs. And I'm very happy that I can introduce you Christina Sharkey, Commercial Counselor, and Erik Black, Cultural Attaché U.S. Embassy Prague.
Well, Dobrý den. It's an honor for me to join you today and share some thoughts I have about the importance of equal pay for equal work. But let me first express my sincere thanks to the Equal Pay Day conference organizers, and especially to one of my new heroes, Lenka Shastna, for her amazing team at the Business and Professional Women of the Czech Republic. Through our collaborative work on the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs that was just mentioned, and by the way, which I am thrilled to support, I have gained a deeper appreciation for the mission of BPWCR and the great work they do to empower more women, more Czech women, to seize their dreams and to defend their rights to equal treatment, including equal pay. Let me also say, Miss Jackie Doyle, I really appreciated your remarks and the great suggestions that you gave from your own experience, as well as from the things that you have learned about it. And I'd like to use your quote, equal pay is a right, not a luxury. I love that. Thank you for voicing that for us. Let me quickly just have a personal tangent. As the Cultural Attaché at the U.S. Embassy, I have the best job there. I mean, Christina may say otherwise, but I know I have the best job. And I love the work I do. It's work like this. It's meaningful work. It's helping people to grow to their greatest capacities. And I'm also very blessed to have an incredibly supportive and loving spouse whose work as a middle school teacher 20 years ago put me through graduate school and put me on track to do what I'm doing today. Together, Caroline and I have 5 beautiful children, including 3 daughters. And 2 of them are already studying at U.S. universities. Our 3rd daughter is a junior here in Prague. Now, while I miss, as a dad, I miss having all of my girls around, I relish each opportunity I have to talk with them about their hopes, their dreams, their ambitions, and their desires. And for each of my children, it is my sincerest desire that they live a happy, productive lives pursuing their dreams. And for my 3 daughters, I hope that they won't have to confront the same barriers to success that their mom and especially their grandmothers and great-grandmothers encountered. The good news is that the trends are in the right direction, but there's still much work to be done. In the United States today, in the United States today, more women attend college and graduate school now than men do. And I believe the situation is similar here in the Czech Republic. This was certainly not the case when my mother entered nursing school in the late 60s, or when my grandmother, who was widowed at age 38, and who also had 5 children at the time, had to return to school and find employment. Now, while there are indeed significant advances in women's access to education, and even in the careers that they can choose to pursue, yet the pay gap that we're talking about in this conference remains in the United States and in other countries, and it needs to be closed. Now, March in the United States is known as Women's History Month, and today is the last day of March. And this is a month that we dedicate to the awareness of the unique and valued contribution that women make to our society, as well as the challenges that they continue to face. Now, I'd like to share a quote. Mathematician and one of the first African-American women to work as a NASA scientist, Katherine Johnson, once said, quote, "Girls are capable of doing everything that men are capable of doing, and sometimes they have more imagination than men," unquote. You may remember Katherine Johnson's story. It was portrayed in the movie Hidden Figures. She faced both racial and gendered stereotypes and barriers while working to support America's space program in the 1960s. And yet, despite the significant challenges that she faced, she soldiered on and she brought about change through her example. Change in NASA itself and change that is now reflected in the United States, in our society. Her amazing story is an example, is still an inspiration to us to use our imaginations to imagine things and create the situations better for all people, regardless of their race or their gender. Another Black American woman, the singer Beyonce, said recently, men have to demand that their wives, daughters, mothers, and sisters earn more, commensurate with their qualifications and not their gender. Equality will be achieved when men and women are granted equal pay and equal respect, unquote. And now I can add Jackie's quote to this. Equal pay is a right, not a luxury. So why should men care about equal pay? The first and foremost reason is the question of fairness. Fairness, and I know that that has been addressed here. Second, pay is one of the key factors affecting motivation and relationships in a workplace, which also directly affects the productivity of workers and the bottom line in a business. Employees will quit if they perceive inequality, and you lose incredible talent that you've recruited and brought in and trained in your organization if you have these problems. They need to be addressed. Third, paying women less than men for the same work has far-reaching implications for our society and can lead to higher incidences of poverty, particularly if women are paid less and have less contributions to their pension and other things that can happen. As democracies, we understand, or we should understand, that human rights are inalienable, universal, and egalitarian. They should apply equally to both genders. And if they don't, we have to fix it. That's why men should care about equal pay. In closing, I'd like to share one more quote, something that Maria Shriver said. She said, quote, "When we pay women less than men, we are telling women that their work isn't as valuable. We are all equally valuable, and we should all be paid equally," unquote. As a man, as a husband, as a father of 3 girls, allow me to add my voice. I acknowledge that women and men have different gifts and perspectives, but when it comes to performing the same work, they should be paid the same, period. Gender should not be a factor in determining one's pay. And I hope we'll follow the advice that has been shared in this conference, that we can make a difference as men working to be champions for change, as Jackie talked about, but also collectively working to raise awareness of this issue so that more people can champion this important cause. I thank you for organizing this conference to raise awareness, and thank you again for listening to my remarks.
Thank you, Erik.
Thanks, Erik. Now I'll take over from him. And I just want to say thank you so much for inviting us to join in this amazing series of speeches and conference and talking about gender equity. It's such a powerful topic, obviously close to my heart. And it's really fun to be able to share this with the women of the Czech Republic, women and men of the Czech Republic. So I'll just share that and I also say that we're coming from an American perspective and sharing kind of how the Americans are look at Equal Pay Day too. So I'm currently taking a course, an online course on diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I do believe that you can never stop learning. And this weekend, I watched a very powerful TED Talk by a woman named Valerie Alexander. And I'd like to share an exercise that she did that I found to be very powerful. So please, give me a little bit of time, but I ask that maybe you close your eyes. You're not on Zoom. Let's visualize a time after COVID, because there will be a time, I promise you. You are eating out, maybe for the very first time in your favorite restaurants. You're enjoying the experience of being there with your partner or your best friend or whomever it is. And the table next to you, there's a couple that's celebrating their anniversary. You can see the joy on their faces. You want to celebrate with them. The very next day, you have to run to the airport and you're running late. And you're running down the gangway. You just barely made it to the plane. You run through the door. They're closing the door behind you. The pilot is there to greet you and ask you to politely get to your seat. Finally, you make it to your destination. Let's say it's San Francisco, California, one of my favorite US cities. And you're there for an incredible tech conference. And you're in your seat and the excitement is building. And a tech entrepreneur takes the stage and is about to speak. And so now I ask you to open your eyes and come back to us. And I'm going to ask you, when you were visualizing that restaurant scene and the couple, was it a lesbian couple? When you met that pilot, when you walked onto the plane, was it a Black woman? And when that tech entrepreneur took the stage, did that tech entrepreneur look like me? You know what? I'm going to admit to you that when I did this exercise, my brain immediately went to every stereotype. I immediately thought of a straight couple. I immediately thought of an older white man as my pilot. I immediately thought of a younger white man as that tech entrepreneur. But I'll tell you this, I won't do it again. So a famous American who sadly we lost last year, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was a feminist. She was a Supreme Court jurist. And yeah, sadly we lost her to cancer last year. But she used to be frequently asked, when will there be enough women on the US Supreme Court? And she would answer 9, which would be all of them. And people would find that shocking. But why? For nearly 200 years, it was 9 men. So what I want to talk about is mindfulness. So being thoughtful about our words and our actions, and allyship, about how we can help others, both men and women, to improve the state of women in our society across the world. In the United States, issues of equity are even more pronounced thanks to our diversity. We are a nation of indigenous peoples, descendants of slaves and immigrants. In the US, equal pay day is much different for women in each of these groups. It's March 9th for Asian women, March 24th for white women, August 3rd for Black women, September 8th for Native American women, and October 21st for Latina women. We have a lot of work to do. But even then, not all women within these groups have the same opportunities. Equal pay day for mothers is not until June 4th. Yes, that's right. Mothers are paid 70 cents for every dollar paid to fathers. And that is the very concrete fact that adds to so much of the invisible emotional labor that mothers tend to carry. And now, because of COVID, nearly 3 million women, mostly mothers, have been forced out of the labor market to take care of their children because they don't have access to childcare or they're not in school. And yet, I'm going to have another personal story. So I'm a member of a women's group of commercial officers in the Foreign Service. And recently it has become very clear to us that women were not being promoted at the same rate as men in the past few years. So our headquarters decided, well, we need to create a special leadership class for women. Yes, that will fix the problem. And in the past few months, I've served as an SME, a subject matter expert. Seeing as I'm a woman, I guess I'm qualified. And along with many of my fellow colleagues, we share our experiences. We share stories of how in our day-to-day work, we sometimes feel invisible, unheard, or perhaps because we speak up, we're labeled as aggressive. Professionals, by any account, we get mansplained and talked over. We endure inappropriate comments. I was recently referred to as the ambassador's lovely assistant. So or sometimes we're actually the victims of very real discrimination. So I'm on a Teams call, as we all are these days, and I'm thinking, we're training the wrong people. These women are smart, talented, educated, experienced women. Why are we being trained to fit into a mold that was defined by our white male predecessors? And while that may be true, I recently read on CNN that a UN Development Program Index on social norms related to gender suggests that almost 90% of the world's men and women are biased in some way against women. This is part of the Gender Social Norms Index. And so really what I think is that we all need to be more mindful, and we all need to be better allies. So how do we accomplish that? And there was a great article, I believe in November or December, of the Harvard Business Review that outlines a few steps of how to be a good ally. And the first step is to educate yourself. And I think that coming to a conference like this is one of the best places to start, if not taking an online class like I'm doing, participating in professional development, suggesting classes for your work. There's lots of different avenues, reading books, reading articles, staying up to date on what's the latest and greatest ways to try and defeat some of these biases and some of these inequities. The second is to own your privilege. And this is something that I think is probably more important in the United States. As a white woman, I come from a place of privilege. Yes, my gender puts me at a disadvantage in some circumstances, but as I had mentioned, that equal pay day is very different for different people of different races and ethnicities. I know that I have a better place than many of my other colleagues. Seek out and accept feedback. So when could I be better? When could I be a better leader, a better manager? Asking both the men and the women in my office is, how could I be a better leader? How could I be more inclusive? How can I be more supportive? That's always important, is to be able to reflect back on your own actions. Become confident. I think that many of the women speakers here probably don't have that problem, but imposter syndrome, where we feel like maybe we don't deserve the place that we hold, we don't deserve to be the speaker, we don't deserve the leadership position, when in very much fact, we are very well educated, we are very experienced, and we deserve the positions that we've attained. But sometimes we don't exude that confidence that we've earned, and we need to learn to be more confident. Bring diversity to the table. Because you know what? When there are more women at the table, women feel more secure in speaking up. So making sure that at that meeting, at that conference, that we don't have any manels, all male panels, that the women's voices are heard. And if they're not, make sure that you speak up and that you say that, that they're invited. And that leads me to the next point, which is to see something and say something. If one of your female colleagues is being unheard, if they made a comment that was later echoed by a male colleague, it's time to say something. It's time to echo her words. It's time to acknowledge her contributions. It's time to bolster her voice and to find a way to make sure that she is heard. And we all have to take a responsibility in that. The next one is sponsor marginalized coworkers. So sponsoring is a very different kind of a thing than mentoring. So sponsoring is like being a PR firm for your colleagues and for the women that are a part of the group. So that's improving their corridor reputation, speaking well of them. It makes a huge difference. Insisting on diverse candidates. Of course, if we don't have people hired into the organization, women and people of different backgrounds, then we're not going to have them leading. So always insisting that there's an equal balance of male and female candidates that are being heard, that are being interviewed, to seek out and make sure that people that are more disadvantaged have an opportunity to know that there's even an opening at your company or at your organization.
Christine,
and lastly,
thank you. Sorry, we are running out of time. So, okay. Just if you have some last words for us.
Sure. Okay, last is just to build a community of allies. And that's what this is. I think this group is exactly that. And I'll end with a quote from Madeleine Albright, our first female Secretary of State, and one of the most famous Czech Americans. And that she said it's one of her most undiplomatic moments. But the quote is, "There's a special place in hell for women who don't help each other." So I know that we're all here.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Erik.
Thank you, Erik. Thank you, Christina.